For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
A choice right now between fear and love. It's just a ride.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expanding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this incredibly cool episode, guys, we have author and researcher Preston Dennett joining us. Now, he has written over 30 books and hundreds of articles, but on this particular episode, we talk about his book, The Healing Power of UFOs. And in this thing, he has 300 true accounts of people healed by extraterrestrials. And it's fascinating. Not all of them were healed, too. Some of them were hurt, and it goes so deep, guys. It's so incredible. So again, all the ways to find one of my favorite researchers and authors, Preston Dennett, located down in the show notes, so make sure that y'all check that out. While you're down there as well, check out expandingrealitypodcast.com. That's our mothership. That's the central hub for everything. It'll get you to all the socials, the store. And speaking of store, new t-shirts. Check them out. We have the Thought Ninja. Waching, waching. That dude will hop in and stop those spirals before they start. We've got a t-shirt for you. Also, check out the Lizard Turds t-shirt. Ugh, they're gross. Now, not all lizard people are turds. There's a delineation, but there are some that are turds, and that's the t-shirt that helps you see that. All right, so Lizard Turds and Thought Ninja linked down in the show notes. Make sure that you'll check that out. Also, sign up to become an Expansive Insider. That's the best way to support the show, guys. You get access to all the bonus stuff that we're doing, and it's absolutely fantastic. Also, this is a value for value system here, so if you guys find this valuable, there is a link down there as well. That reads Support the Mission. Thank you all so much for your support. All right, so let's get to this incredibly cool conversation, guys, with Preston Dennett. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming to the show, we have Preston Dennett, Preston D-Train Dennett. Have you ever been called that?
I've been called a lot of things, but no, that's the first time. Okay.
Well, maybe that's a sweet new nickname that you can wrap around. I'm going to get it started. Preston D-Train Dennett. I love it. Well, man, you are, author of over 30 books, hundreds of articles, like 38 something fictional short stories. You're just one of the most revered researchers in the field of the phenomena, man. You cover such a wide scope. Your research is incredible. One of my favorite books by you, actually the only book I physically have by you, is this. There we go. The Healing Power of UFOs, 300 True Accounts. And I love that your first book was on healing UFOs, but you went back after finding so many people that wrote in, and you found over 300, which is absolutely insane. This book is incredible, man. It's got some of the most remarkable cases, which you and I will go over a little bit here today. But if you don't mind, for my audience that's not too familiar with you, will you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, brother?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Well, what can I say? I'm 5 of 6 kids in my family. I'm number 5, actually. Grew up mostly in California, moved from Chicago. Very skeptical of all things paranormal, all things UFOs. Just didn't believe in any of it until I was, it was 1986. So that would make me 21 years old. November 17 is the exact date, 1986. I heard a report on the news about a sighting over Alaska and thought this poor pilot, who saw this UFO is lying or hallucinating or misperceiving. But I remembered my older brother, Mark, said he'd seen a UFO some years earlier. I didn't believe him at the time, but after I heard this report in the news and saw, a picture of this pilot, I decided I'd ask Mark what he thought of UFOs. He had seen one. Tell me what you saw. I was ready to listen finally. And he described an incredible sighting. He had it with two friends, chased a UFO down the street, treetop level. It was metallic disc, covered with lights, totally silent. Saw it for about 15 minutes. And really good sighting. And I'm like, damn, you're not lying. I mean, I could tell he wasn't lying. And it was clear he wasn't misperceiving. So I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And I started asking other people and found out that a lot of people I knew had had encounters. A lot. It was shocking. I was really actually kind of upset about it. My sister-in-law had had a sighting, a couple of friends. A good friend had missing time. I couldn't believe it. I brought it up at work. Leigh I'd worked with for years. Said, oh yeah, me and my whole family. We watched this star-like object. It was darting around. It would stop. It would do loop-de-loops, move all over the place. And in walks Dorothy, who I love. Dorothy's completely unfiltered, just really outgoing and funny as hell. And it's like, oh, UFO, one followed us home from the library. Like, what? So yeah, it literally hit home for me like a ton of bricks. It was not good news. Really, I was really upset about it. I was scandalized. Well, you guys were lying to me all these years. How could you not have told me this? And they're like, well, you wouldn't have believed us. You would not have believed me. And that's true. I would not have. So
it's remarkable.
Yeah, it was crazy. I bought every book I could find at that point. I'm like, all right, I'm going to prove this is swamp gas. Even though I knew it wasn't, it was clear from the beginning that it wasn't. I just couldn't go there. And this wasn't taught in schools. This wasn't being taken seriously on TV. No one was talking about it really. And I joined MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. I took their test to become a field investigator. And they're like, it's a take-home test. I'm like, oh, really? This is going to be a breeze. A take-home test? Come on. How hard could that be? It's really hard. There was no internet, right? So they had all these questions on astronomy, which I was pretty good at. I was taking that in college. But also photography, and meteorology, weather, and UFO history. I breezed through that part because by that point I had all the books on the subject that I could get my hands on. But yeah, it was like 100, 200 questions. It was not easy. I did really well. I ended up missing like 2 questions. And one was a stupid mistake. I was really mad because I wanted a perfect score, right? but no, yeah. I became a field investigator and started investigating my own cases. Started writing articles, started going out in the fields looking for them myself. I eventually did have encounters and was in the field for 10 years doing research and writing articles. And my sister-in-law, the wife of my brother Mark, who had seen aliens, by the way, when she was a kid, she's like, you should write a book. And I'm like, maybe you're right. And my first book was actually about healings because I had just met a lady who had been healed of a cyst. So that was my first book. I found about 100 cases. And I ended up redoing it after so many people contacted me. Now I've got more than 300 documented cases.
In this incredible book. Absolutely incredible book. I'll be linking it down below for damn sure. And all the ways to find you. Your website's phenomenal. Just like I said, everything about you. Now, what's so fascinating about these UFO healings is that they do everything from, broken bones to hemorrhoids, but they also hurt and help. So it's really interesting because, again, in here, you've got so many damn cases, man. And like I said, if you... Oh, and I actually made a connection here that I wanted to run by you real quick. So let's just jump right into this thing, okay? So one of the cases of UFO injuries, speaking of injuries right here, that you write in your book, April 29th of 1964, there's a very unusual encounter that occurred in Albuquerque, New Mexico to a young 10-year-old girl named Sharon Stoll. Do you remember this case?
Oh, yeah, I sure do.
Now, do you mind walking us through this case?
Yeah, this case got a lot of attention from researchers from Project Blue Book, looked into it as well. And this occurred like just days after the really famous Lani Zamora UFO landing. And not that far away from it. So I wonder about that.
You nailed this, and this was the connection I made. When I was reading this, I read in here, egg-shaped thing, and I saw that it was in April 29th of 1964 in Socorro, or in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and on April 24th of the same year, 64, Socorro, New Mexico, just 76 miles away. Yes, I looked this up. That is when the Lani Zamora happened. Same thing, egg-shaped craft. Fascinating. Now, I don't know if he grew 5 inches, which we'll get to, but, let's talk about it. So tell us about Miss Stoll here.
Yeah, so Sharon Stoll was in this school. I forget the name of the school, Union, I think it was. But at any rate.
Lowell.
Was that Lowell Elementary? All right. Yeah, this is one of many schoolyard encounters, by the way. UFOs.
Also, if I may, we did no prep for this before I brought you on. Out of the 30 books, this is the one I showed you 1 minute before we started recording here. And not only out of the 300 cases, but you're very familiar with this one. So we'll forgive you of your slip in one detail about a school case. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I actually really love this case because it's so unusual. And so she's out on the playground, right? Her and her little sister. And everyone's just playing around. It's a bright sunny day. And she looks up and sees this egg-shaped object. And it's coming down lower and lower, and no one's seeming to notice it. She and her sister can see it. This thing is doing weird motions, kind of a yo-yo and pendulum type motion, which is typical of UFOs. And she's looking up at it. Her little sister gets scared and kind of turns away. But Sharon Stoll is entranced. She's like, wow, this thing is unusual. And she watched it pretty much the entire duration of the recess. And it was very low, totally silent, obviously not a plane or a balloon or anything like that. And she thought it was just a simple sighting, but goes to class and immediately starts to feel unwell. Her face is hot. So she goes to the nurse, and the nurse is really alarmed because Sharon has got like what looks like a sunburn. Even worse, actually, her eyes started to swell up so that they were nearly closed. She was diagnosed with burns. They thought it might be the sun, but Sharon's like, no, the sun was in the other direction. I wasn't even looking at the sun. So this was severe enough where she had to wear dark glasses. Her eyes were painful. That she had to use lotion on her face. And that seemed to be the extent of it. This is somewhat common. Eye irritation, sort of like similar to radiation burns, is often reported. But it kind of went beyond this because over the next 3 weeks, something really strange happened to Sharon. She grew like, I think it was almost a foot. And not only that, became much more mature, really freaking out her mother. Was acting like an adult and completely freaked her mother out because this was clearly an effect from the UFO. This was published in the local newspapers. And in fact, there was a police commissioner who warned people, to not get too close to these objects. I did find the actual newspaper article on this case. This attracted the attention of Jim and Coral Lorenzen, major researchers at that time. Project Blue Book, as I mentioned, came to investigate this case, and they declared it a hoax without doing any real investigation whatsoever. And this is another indication of how Project Blue Book was not a real investigative body. It was really just a way to handle the publicity. They paid little attention to valid cases. Anyone who clearly saw Venus or a balloon, they would spend all their attention on. If you saw something close up, they would attack you as a witness. And I think that's sort of what went on here. So yeah, a really good case of what we would term physiological effects.
Yeah, and please.
Yeah, if you look in the MUFON Journal, the MUFON Handbook, the Investigator Handbook, they have a section on physiological effects, and it's called Medical Injuries from UFOs. And that's all they say. They do not mention healings at all. And so I wanted to point out in the beginning of this book that, yeah, physiological effects do involve injuries as well. And there's quite a few of them, actually. But it seems like most of them are accidental, or a lot of the healing cases are clearly intentional. Not all, but certainly a lot of them. And that's a really interesting case of a injury from a UFO that got too close to the witness.
It really is, and this reminds me of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when Dreyfuss's character gets burned, because the thing passed too close to the car there in that one iconic scene, and just that side of his face that was exposed to the side that the UFO was flying by, that's what got burned. Another very interesting case in here was of a New Jersey man who was buzzed by a UFO, actually received workers' compensation for his injuries. This is wild, man. Oh, yeah, Mr. Sturdivante. I remember that case as well. a lot of night watchmen who see UFOs. That's one of the risks of being a night watchman or a police officer, rewards, a truck driver on the road. This is why lots of children see UFOs. They want to see a UFO. You've got to go outside, especially at night. And Harry Sturdivante, I think was the guy's name. And he received, I think he's the only guy who's ever received workers' compensation from having been buzzed by a UFO. I mean, it's remarkable. It's so incredible, because then the insurance had to pay this out, and file a claim, and now it's on record and reported. And I love what you said about Blue Book as well. I just want to touch on it real quick. J. Allen Hynek, even there at the end, formed SUFOS back in the 70s, and you have a couple of cases from SUFOS in here as well. So even he knew that they were doing some nonsense. Oh, yeah. He was really upset with them. Yeah. He came in as a skeptic, too. Totally bought that this was just hoaxes and hallucinations and misperceptions. That was Blue Book's go-to. 3 things. If you think you saw a UFO, you're wrong. You're lying. You're misperceiving, or you are on drugs. That was their go-to. Which you empathize with. That was your go-to when you found out, all this stuff was going on. That was your default setting. And I love that the phenomena just kept pulling you back in the form of friends, families, your own accounts and sightings and experiences, which I'd love to talk about as well. Now, another one that you had on here was a hand-cut shoulder injury. Now, this was September 20th of 99. This was the Tim case. Do you remember this? It's a pseudonym that was used. I'm not sure. You'll have to refresh me on that one. That's okay. I was actually hoping to stump you, and so this is the first one. Then good. It's on September 20th, 1999. A computer specialist was working in Momoishi, Japan. It was around 2 a.m. and Tim was taking a relaxing walk on the beach after a 12-hour workday. Suddenly, a bright light shone down from the land alongside the beach, followed by a loud boom, and then there was a light rising and changing colors. Thinking that there was an accident, Tim approached the light. He tried to call the police on his cell phone, but strangely it wasn't working, as most cell phones strangely malfunction during these types of encounters. He suddenly felt a sense of danger, and filled with fear, he ran. Now, he fell off of the path and gashed his hand open. This is so interesting to me. So the thing that startled him, that made him run, were these entities, was a craft and a loud boom and a light. Now, injured and scared, Tim decided to head back to his car. This is him quoted, "I stood back up on my feet," he says, but when I looked forward, no more than 10 meters away, a small guy with a huge head was staring at me. My legs gave up on me at the very same moment. So he had sort of this fear, this innate, reaction that fight or flight. He just chose to fall. I was shaking so much that I couldn't even scream for help. Thinking about it now, I'm not half the man I was. This was a very interesting quote from this man, Tim, because you think, UFOs, alien, I'm going to be badass. I'm just going to go high five them and all that stuff. But in the moment, fell down to his knees, weak, couldn't even react, and was even questioning his manliness after that. So continuing on here, Tim noticed a second figure about 75 feet away. Tim was so shocked that he couldn't even think. He is quoted here again saying, "The worst part for me," he says, "was staring at those things. Those big, black, shiny eyes were so indifferent, so cold. Those eyes saw right through me." this is another thing that we hear reported with the contact phenomena is that some of them feel like they have souls, some feel like they do not have souls, which is, again, something I want to touch on with you here, but just continuing on. Tim heard a voice in his head said, "Come down now." It said, "No harm will come to you. Come down now." Now, Tim's scared. He has a whole conversation with these beings.
Yeah, I do remember this one.
Yeah, he held his injured hand and took a defensive position. "No harm will come to you," the voice repeated. "What do you want from me?" Tim asked. "To teach," the voice replied. "I don't understand what you want to teach me." "No harm will come to you. I'm here to answer the questions and show you our ways." Now, he is sitting here pleading with these folks, still scared, just kind of for context up there. "If you mean me no harm," Tim replied, "can I go home now?" The whatever replied, "I am no more alien to you than you are to me." The figure said, "I am here to help you, to guide you. I cannot force you to see what I want to show you." Now, this is a very important part of this that I definitely wanted to point out is this autonomy that you have, this sovereignty with your body that you have to be asked, and then you have to consent to whatever's going on here. Now, not a lot of cases talk about this. Even some of the people who are terrified, they say they were abducted, because there's a big difference between contact and abduction. So they say that they were abducted, but we all think that perhaps this is against their will. Do you think, before we continue on here, this is why I wanted to bring this up, do you think that this is something that's true, that we actually have sovereignty and that we have to consent to be taken by these things or to have any sort of medical procedures or anything else done to us by not only aliens, but anything? Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah, I do. I do think that, and this is a delicate point because there are a lot of people who are having contact and they are certain this was not something they consented to. They're frightened, they don't like it, they're not happy about it, they feel like they were kidnapped against their will. However, many of these people who I've talked to continue to have contact and realize at some point that they did consent to this. And this is a very important point because I'm glad you brought it up. In a recent book I published about a lady by the name of Dolly Saffron. She's a fully conscious contactee. She's been on board when people are taken on board, and they are fighting and screaming and in abject fear, saying, "Stop, don't touch me." And the ETs will not examine you even or touch you if you absolutely do not want them to. But we are people who are somewhat conflicted and compartmentalized in our consciousness, and they are looking at our whole selves. So a lot of people who say, "No, I don't want this," actually did already agree to it and aren't even aware of it. And this is a very delicate point, like I said, in this field. But I've come to believe that, yes, people who are being taken have consented to this. And even if you don't remember, you've consented to that as well. There are a lot of people who have missing time. So I don't remember this. They took my memory away. I'm not sure that that's entirely accurate. Yes, they helped you. They assisted you in your desire to not remember this. And there are a number of cases of people who are fully conscious who were basically told exactly that. The ET says, "It's not us taking your memory away. It's you. You do not want to remember." And ETs do not want to cause people fear or trauma, so they will assist you in your desire to not remember. And this is where some people come away from their experiences thinking, "Well, I didn't choose this. This was against my will." And when someone's in a lot of fear, they automatically think this is not a good thing for me. I don't like this, which is understandable. And I'm not going to say that every person who has contact it's all puppies and rainbows and a good thing, because it's clear to me people do have trauma. That's pretty common, actually. People come away from their experiences with nightmares and PTSD, and they're locking their doors and sleeping with the lights on and hiding under their bed. Seriously. There was a full-grown man I talked to. He's like, "I have to sleep under my bed." Like, really? Yeah. So there's a lot of fear surrounding this. But no, I don't think that they are intentionally hurting people. And I don't think they're doing it against people's will. And people who face their fears and get past the trauma, that's when they start to realize, oh, okay, this is when you get to the good stuff. When you start to remember that they took you on a tour of the craft, when they actually healed you. That's the purpose of most of these exams, is a checkup or an actual healing. And that's when you remember being taken to the observation deck and shown the moon or Saturn or the Earth down below or even another planet. That's when you remember being taken to the control room. And they sit you down in the seat and say, would you like to fly the craft? I have case after case of this. If you take an objective look at what actually happens to people who are taken on board, you will find no accounts of outright sadism, sadistic behavior, or torture, or ETs going, I want to hurt you. It's just not there. And it's the opposite. We're giving warnings. They're talking to people about their lives. They're talking about the dangers of nuclear proliferation, of war, of greed and corruption, the importance of spiritual growth, all these kinds of things. If you really look at it, you'll see this is actually a very good thing. And the majority of people I've talked to, I always ask them, do you think this is evil? No. Most don't. 90% say no. I'm like, would you prefer this never happened to you? If you could stop it right now, would you? And most will say no. In the beginning, yeah, it was really hard. But now I've learned that this is something that is a really special experience and very spiritually transformative. So it's, again, a very delicate subject. And my heart goes out to people who are having a hard time with this. Because I get it. You know, I can only imagine what it'd be like to wake up and see a gray in your bed saying, you're coming with us. And by the way, the first thing out of their mouths, or their minds, I should say, is almost without exception, some variation of don't be afraid. You have no reason to fear. Have no fear. We will not hurt you. No harm will come to you. That's true in this exact case. So, yeah, and I love this case because he had a nice long conversation with them and was in fact healed.
You know, and this is what was another reason, you know, and that's the case just keeps getting more interesting. So I guess continuing here, he just again asks, you know, they say repeatedly exactly to what you're saying, man, here is it that no harm will come to you. And then he said, will I be allowed to go home after that? Meaning, I just want to go home, dude. And they're like, yeah, you'll be able to go home. So Tim followed the two figures to a small platform-like device and was whisked upward about 100 feet into a large triangular-shaped craft, which is fascinating. When we think triangular, we think TR-3B, we think government, we think, you know, reverse engineered stuff. That's just where my mind goes. Now, what was very interesting as well is that not only is he healed by these aliens from the injury that, I mean, technically they caused, I guess, because they startled him and he took off and ran, and that's why he was injured. So it's almost like, I mean, you know, they're the epitome of leave no trace, right? And so, you know, so he hurt his hand and his shoulder, but the pain was completely gone after a light device, and there was the wound was replaced by a small scar, and then that was awesome. Now, what was very interesting as well here is that Tim was led then through the ship and shown the control room, exactly like what you said, and other things. He watched the craft as it was chased by military jets. This is so cool. The UFO evaded the jets by darting into deep space. The beings then told Tim that humanity was at the end of a life cycle and that only the ones capable of organizing and learning will be allowed to go through the next cycle. They told him that humanity was not ready and would be destroyed. This is fascinating as well, because now I'm thinking this Great Awakening, this shift, this, you know, perhaps precession of the equinoxes, these long-scale cycles, that maybe this is what occurs here, and that we get these level-ups, maybe these conscious or cognitive level-ups that occur, and only the ones ready will be able to ascend to the new cycle. Fascinating, because again, this now speaks to the 3D, 5D, Dolores Cannon idea. I mean, there are a lot of other parallels and other, I guess, disciplines that are a remnant of this, but it's fascinating to me. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because that really upset him. They're like, he's like, what? Humanity will be destroyed? And they basically said, no, you're misunderstanding us. No harm will come to those people who are willing to learn and open their minds up. And this is a message a lot of contactees get, that, yeah, we're facing an existential event. And it's up to all of us to really raise our awareness. And that's what, you know, Earth School is. We come down here to learn and evolve and become fully realized and enlightened human beings. And that includes, raising our psychic abilities and accepting that we are not alone in this universe and recognizing that we are eternal beings and all of this stuff. And not everyone is going to be able to do that in a single lifetime, perhaps. And, so there is an existential event that's not necessarily bad news, because you're going to be just fine. You can come back to another planet or this planet and continue your spiritual growth. And I think this is what the ETs have, sort of a different perspective on life and death than we do, because we're like, death is so horrible, it's bad, it's terrible, it's the end of everything. No, it's not. It's walking through a door. It's a healing event. So I think, this is what they basically described to him in so many words. And that's one of the things I really like about this case, is because they were trying to explain to him that, everything's going to be fine. A lot of you will be, that we're at the end of a life cycle, but that does not mean that you are going to be destroyed. If you're willing to learn and expand your consciousness, we are here to help.
Yeah, it's this energetic or this vibrational split, and again, it kind of remarks back to like an apocalyptic type event. So maybe ETs are the inspiration for this story in Revelation in the Bible. It's fascinating to me. This, by the way, guys, all occurs within the first 58 pages of the book. And I'm skipping around here. And so, again, I'm going to link all the ways to find this down in the show notes, you guys. Easily one of my favorites and just a wonderful reference for anybody who's really taken their cognitive look at the extraterrestrial phenomena in a totally different direction. Because the fact that they're, and we're going through some of the injuries here before we get to the healings, but I love that you put that in there just to be fair and balanced here. Yeah,
there's a number of cases, by the way, where like Sergeant Charles Moody, he was being taken on board and he's protesting, he's pulling out his revolver, and he's like, no, and he hurt his back because of this. There's a couple of cases where people tripped on board the UFO, and so there's a very small residue of cases in which the whole contact event was what resulted in an injury and a subsequent healing.
Yes.
And what's really cool about this case involving Tim from Japan is he shunned all publicity. He's like, you can use my case, but I will never go public. He has absolutely nothing to gain from, coming forward with this. And this is what most witnesses will say. And I think this is an important point because it shows, I think this adds a level of credibility. They're not here to hoax. They're not here to, make money off of this or get any attention. They don't want people to know who they are, but they feel it's important that their case be told. There was a guy in Belgium who I interviewed who had his foot healed, and he's like, I don't want you to talk about my case. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I really would like to, but if that's fine. He basically just called for counseling, but contacted me later and says, you know what? I want you to use my case because I don't like the way this phenomenon is being represented in the media. It's not true. They're not here to hurt us. By all means, use my case. He had his foot healed. Really cool case, actually. But yeah, that's what I love about a lot of these cases is people are like, please don't use my name.
Well, and this is what I love about this is because when we look at things like the disclosure movement or something like that, one of the questions I usually ask is disclosure important to you? And by disclosure, I mean literally the governments of the world coming out and saying, hey, aliens are real and here's what we think about them or here's what we found out about them. So I'll pose a question to you as well, sir. Do you find that the governments of the world revealing that aliens are real type disclosure is important to you?
Yeah, I'm going to say that with a little bit of a hesitation.
Okay, with an asterisk, okay.
Yeah, because I think it is an important step. Our governments should be truthful and transparent on this. And it's encouraging to hear them finally, after 80 years, say, well, okay, there is some validity to this phenomena. But I'm still really mad at them, all of them, because for 80 years, they have lied about this and have called people liars, idiots. Said, if you think you saw a UFO, you're sadly mistaken. There's no such thing. And now, what, 80 years later, suddenly they reverse their opinion 180 degrees, but still can barely say the word extraterrestrial. Like, well, it could be, we don't know, it could be Japan, or no, China, it could be Russia.
Yeah.
No, it could be us. And when I heard that in the congressional hearings, I laughed out loud, because this is the head of Defense Intelligence saying, we don't know what this is, it could be us. I'm like, well, wait a second. If it's us, wouldn't you know that? Anyone in the world would know. If it's the U.S. technology, you would be the one. And they're saying, well, it might be us and we don't know it. It was ridiculous.
So silly.
And they're like, one's a balloon. They had 144 cases of sightings. And they're ignoring 80 years of research. It's like none of these guys ever picked up a single UFO book. And they lied through the entire congressional hearing, saying we never shot at a UFO. Oh, yeah? What about the Battle of LA in 1942?
Thank you. This is right when you said it, it's exactly what came to mind. All those spotlights and all those little glowing things pinging off of the damn thing. People died because of the fallout of that, because of shells.
Exactly.
Falling. Yeah.
Yeah. 6 people died. Yeah. Heart attacks and falling debris. And they so unfortunate. They lied. I think that it's good news for a couple of reasons, this congressional hearing. One is that, yes, they finally said it's real. They only said it's real to keep control of the narrative because they were forced to. Everyone knew their hand. We could see all their cards. We know they know it's real. We know it. And if they did not say this is real, they lose all credibility, 100%. They become irrelevant to this subject. And that's the last thing they want. So I don't think for 1 second that they did this willingly. Their hand was forced. They had to. And also, I think the other really good result of this is it got a lot of interest on this subject. I mean, it's being talked about in Congress. There are laws being passed. There's all these government programs being put forth. There are a lot of people who are being pulled into this field and taking like, oh my gosh, maybe there is validity to this. But we don't need our lying governments to know this. Anyone who picks up a single darn UFO book and actually looks at the evidence will find out pretty quick this is absolutely a true phenomenon. The evidence is conclusive in the public arena. It's not just eyewitness testimonies. There's radar return cases. There's landing trace cases. There's implant removal cases. There's animal reaction, electromagnetic effects, and healings and injuries, and the crash retrievals, for Pete's sake. Roswell. I mean, we have these craft, we have these bodies. It's a real phenomena, and our stupid lying government are not being truthful. They're still not. The cover-up is still in place.
I love your passion on this, and I agree with you 100%. The way that I've really looked at this is there are two different kinds of disclosure here. One's discovery and one's disclosure, okay? And I think that this is true for your spiritual awakening, for your esoteric awakening, for your introduction into the UFO phenomena. It's not going to come from your government. And if it does, it's not going to come truthfully, authentically, and altruistically from your government. What I love about the discovery element of this is you, Preston Dennett, are one of the biggest facilitators of the disclosure discovery in my mind. And here's why. This is an entire book full of choice points for you as an individual, as a person who is just looking into UFOs, is just looking into one of these things, or have thought maybe there's something going on all along. When you read through this and it's just case after case after case, then you have a choice to make. You can say either Preston Dennett's full of shit, all of this is fiction and it's all fun stuff and I don't believe a word of it. I'm going to wait for daddy government to disclose to me and tell me what I need to believe and think. That's the difference. And so here's why I don't personally think, to answer my own question here, disclosure from the government is, number one, useful, number two, important to me at all. And so it's because of the discovery. I have discovered, through work like yours, through all of these researchers and wonderful authors and speakers, that there is something incredibly cool going on here. But it did not take the government telling me about it, and that's the discovery part of this. So this is also why I love the way that the extraterrestrials or non-human intelligences do this, is because they do it through individuals. And then all of those individuals have their own independent experiences that you then put into a collective work for all of us to enjoy, instead of this isolated case here that you may hear about as a one-off and then move on, but percentage of things that you're engaged in versus UFO stuff is very small if you're just looking at that one case, having just heard it by ear or something. But when you're going through hundreds of cases, like in your book, from all over the world, from all of these different time periods, then it in my mind becomes very clear that the way that they do this is this grassroots movement. And they're like mini Jesuses running around out there when they're not hurting people with invisible UFOs, which we'll get to that case here in a second, or turning somebody's car invisible. Then, they're healing people. And so they're like doing this on many levels with intimate, very subjective contact with folks on a very one-to-one level, that then if they're willing to come forward with it, which those are a very small percentage of the cases we actually hear about, are the people actually willing to talk about it. Same to what you said earlier about people coming forward. Betty and Barney Hill are a great example. There's a lot of folks out there that have come forward with nothing to gain from this whatsoever, just like Tim in that case there. And so I love what you said about this, man. I agree that it has made people ask more questions, which was like the fundamental thing of the show anyway, is just ask questions, right? Just question everything. And so I do agree with you that part of it has been very interesting and has helped. So I definitely agree, man. This holiday season, you might be looking for nutritious, convenient meals to keep you energized on jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, can help you fuel up for brekkie, lunch, or dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. They just drop them at your door, people. You'll save time and eat well. You'll stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while taking all of your holiday to-dos in stride with good meals in the tum-tum. If you're too busy with all this stuff, these meals are easy to get done. They taste great. All you've got to do is head over to factormeals.com/expandingreality50 and use code expandingreality50 to get 50% off. That's code expandingreality50 at factormeals.com/expandingreality50 to get 50% off.
Yeah. Just one important point I think that I want to bring up, because you mentioned how these are coming from all over the world. And when I first started looking into healing cases, because I had my own case of a lady who was healed of a cyst. And I thought, gosh, I know of a case in France from Jacques Vallée where a doctor was healed. And I thought, well, there's that other case in Peru where a customs official was healed of rheumatism and nearsightedness. I thought, wait, there's another case in Texas, Damon, Texas, involving 2 police officers hit by a beam of light and one was cured of a flesh wound on his finger. I thought, this would be a good article. I'm going to write an article about UFO healings. And I started looking through the literature, and in 2 days I found 30 cases. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to write an article about this. This is going to have to be a book. And found 100 cases after a year or two of really buckling down. And I can tell you without reservation that practically every major researcher out there, almost without exception, has these cases. And no one was talking about it. John Mack has multiple cases. David Jacobs, who hates ETs, has a bunch of cases. I cornered Bud Hopkins because he never wrote about it. He wrote like 6 books and not one mention of healing cases. And I talked to him face to face. I'm like, Bud, what's up? Do you have any cases of people being healed? And he said, yes. And I'm very much encouraged by them, because this shows that they're very interested in the best, the most lovely aspects of being human. And yeah, those are the 3 big guys. But Barbara Lamb has cases, Yvonne Smith, Philip Mantle from England, Timothy Good from England, Michael Hesseman, I think he's from Germany, Jacques Vallée, of course. I mean, you name it. Edith Fiore said that fully half of her clients had UFO healing happen to them. She's the first person with a PhD to write about this. And Ray Hernandez, he's relatively new to the field. He says about half. I think it's probably closer to 20, 30%, but it's a consistent feature of UFO contact that wasn't getting any attention at all. And most major researchers across the world have multiple cases in their files. And I think the 300 that I was able to document in that book which is like, what, 500 pages?
It,
Man, oh man, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
if we're including all the indexes here, which you do a wonderful job, man. I mean, your writing style, first of all, I absolutely adore. Just the way that you do things, the way that you talk about it. It's not just case. You have very insightful points that you yourself, the author, have brought in here. 541 pages in this bad boy. And honestly, I love every one of them. I also just need to compliment you on the aesthetics of this just real quick. The way that they're broken up, the attention you put in the reader, the font and the size are perfect. There are some books, that it's just painful to read. Yours is not that. It's a pleasure to read, sir. So even down to the font and size. So again, it's these little things like this. I really want to make sure that you and the audience here understand how grateful I am for you. Okay, so let's talk about this car thing real quick. So it's case number 27, the leg incision in your book, and here's another hurt and healed type of a case here. So sometime in the late 1950s, contactee Anne Grevler, do you remember her? Grevler?
Yeah, I think I do remember this case, yeah.
In South Africa encountered a landed UFO. She was subsequently invited aboard the ship and was given a tour through space. So she just kind of hung out, took a tour of space here. However, prior to her invitation, the alien showed her just how advanced they were before her eyes. The alien made Grevler's car invisible using a rod-like device. So they just made her car invisible. I was thinking about this on, like when you go into the mall or something and you lock your car, you turn around and you go, whoop, whoop, with the little thing. It's almost like before they took her off, they didn't want her car to be there visible for everybody. So they made it invisible so that she could go uninterrupted, right? And so there wouldn't be a missing persons report and all this to-do that us humans like to go through, right? So the rod-like device is what did it. Now, believing that her car was gone and not just invisible, which is funny too, they just go bloop, and you're like, dude, where's my car? I got to walk all the way home. Then she walked over to where her car should have been. As she did, she gashed her leg on the invisible license plate. I love that you put that in there. Now, the alien told her that although they could turn objects invisible using mind power, it was much easier with gadgets. This is another very interesting thing, because then all technology at a level is just consciousness, right? So the undescribed spaceman then cured Grevler using mind power alone. As a report on the case says, the spaceman was able to administer first aid and accomplished by directing his gaze at the wound, which promptly healed. So again, they make the thing go invisible so that they can take her off. They're like, all right, your car's going to be safe. It's just going to be here. Now, you picture this is South Africa, so I'm thinking Africa just has giraffes running around everywhere, I'm pretty sure, south as well. You could just picture like some animals walking by and bumping into this thing invisibly, right? And just like, what's going on? Or if it rained or something, like the rain would go around it, because it's just invisible to the naked eye. It's not gone, right? But I just thought that this was fascinating, that all of these things just seem to be just so to do. But I like also that they're kind of like accidents that occur with this, and then they're like, oh, stupid humans, and they got to go fix stuff. You know what I mean? They're like, they probably look at us like we're pandas. You know what I mean? Pandas are just so accident prone. They're always falling from things if they're real at all, which is a fun theory. But so what do you think about that case? I mean, that's fascinating, where they just turned her car invisible, took her off, she cut her leg, but then they healed it.
Yeah. It's got some unusual aspects to that case for sure. The invisibility aspect is really cool because that turns up in a number of cases where people are seeing a UFO and then blink, it's gone, and then blink, it's back. They have this ability. Contactees have been told this. And there are a number of cases which show this. There was a really interesting case which got into Blue Book files and the Condon Committee and caused all kinds of consternation among military officials. This was at an air base in Colorado where they could not see anything, but their radar was detecting this UFO swooping right low over the runway. And it was on radar, but they could not see it. And this supposedly happened at the Edwards Air Force Base landing in 1954 with President Eisenhower, where the ETs demonstrated their ability to turn their ships invisible. This is something that they can easily do. And I think they can do it to themselves as well, because a lot of contactees talk about how they have footsteps going through their house. And they think, is this, poltergeist activity, or is this ETs walking around? And then, boom, the ETs will appear. So they do have this ability. And I think it is largely psychic or consciousness driven. and their technology itself is very much connected to all of that consciousness and psychic ability. And also she was healed by mind power because most of these cases are little flashlight devices where they shine a little light on you like Star Trek, or they'll lay you out on a table and do essentially surgery, particularly like the severe injury or disease like cancer. Most of the cancer cases, people are brought on board and given a basic operation, and it's quite involved and sometimes even painful. But if you're healed of, say, a flesh wound, it's a beam of light, or sometimes just being in the presence of a UFO. But there's a residue of cases, about, I think it's close to 5 or 10%. It's mind power. Another case that comes to mind was a gentleman I interviewed, Michael Carter, who is a really cool guy. Was given an award by President Clinton, actually, for his work against racism. And he developed a blood clot in his leg, and it swelled up to twice its size, and he was in danger of dying by the time he went to the doctor. The doctor was super upset. He's like, you should have been here, weeks ago, and gave him a cocktail of drugs, blood thinners, and things to treat this blood clot. And said, yeah, I need to keep very close watch on you. This is a very dangerous situation. And it was shortly after he visited the doctor and started to get his medicine that he had an encounter where in walks these human-looking ETs. People call them Pleiadian or Nordics. I don't like that term. I'll just call them human-looking because I think that's more encompassing. And he said that they were very tall, very muscular, good-looking. And one of them just stood at the foot of his bed and held up its hand, and out comes this blue light, which hits him. And he's all dazed and disoriented and falls asleep and wakes up the next morning and can't wait to tell his family, like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what happened to me last night. Gets out of bed and looks down at his leg, and it's now normal size. It used to be, swollen to twice its normal size. And he said, not only that, the veins and the arteries looked like they had been rerouted. And he was healed. And he goes to his doctor, I think it was a couple of days later. And his doctor's like, what the heck happened here? And Michael, like a lot of people, didn't want to tell him, oh, aliens came and healed me. And he just said, just think of it as a miracle. And his doctor could only shake his head, and the doctor was really upset. He's like, just tell me. And he wouldn't. But this is a good example of how they can heal with mind power alone. And just an endpoint to that is Michael himself is a healer. And a lot of these people who go through this experience come away with healing abilities. And I have visited some of these people personally, at least 3 of them, who are major contactees who claim to have the ability to heal. And one lady, I'll call her Wendy. Actually, she's the lady who was healed of a cyst, right?
Yeah.
I became really good friends with her. And she was super psychic and had all these amazing encounters. She showed me UFOs twice up close. And one time she's like, would you like an energy healing? I'm like, are you kidding? Of course. She's like, do I really have your permission? I have to get your permission to do this. I'm like, of course. She's okay, take off your shoes and socks, and I'm going to run energy through your feet. And I'm like, okay. And I'm whipping them off, going, you go. And she takes her hands and puts them on my feet. And I felt this electric shock, almost. It wasn't really painful in any way at all, but I could feel it. And it was like, like water running up inside your body. I could physically feel this intensely. And she's like, do you feel that? I'm like, are you kidding? I can totally feel this. It was amazing. And another lady, she quit her job as an actor, and I forget what she was doing, and became a healer, a massage therapist. She said, would you like to try it? I'm like, yeah. I went to her office, laid down on the table, and she's doing her little movements with her hands. And I started rubbing my eyes because I kept seeing these pastel lights coming out of her hands. Like, God, I'm hallucinating. But it was like pastel green and yellow and pink. And finally, I told her, I'm like, I think my eyes are screwing up. I'm seeing lights coming out of your hand. She's like, oh, she smiled really wide. She's like, you see it. Some people can see it, some people can't. I'm like, I see it. She's like, yeah, this happens when I do these healings. And yeah, you can absolutely feel it. You come away all energized and you're like, ah! It's awesome. People have this ability to heal, and some have really good testimonials. Real quick, one other lady I interviewed, Pat Brown, she was a telephone operator and didn't believe in UFOs. And her friend's like, let's go to Sedona and go to these channelers. They say they're channeling ETs. And Pat didn't want to do it. And her friend finally convinced her. So she went and saw this channeler who's like, my name is Crouton from Neptune or something. She's like, oh, yeah, right. If you're true, I'd love to go on your ships. He said, we will arrange it. Claiming to be Greys, right? So she goes home to LA and starts having horrifying abductions. She hated it. And it was terrifying for her. These Greys kept coming and taking her. And she finally had enough. And she says, this is really happening. I want to know for sure. She woke up and she was on board the craft. There was a human-looking ET. They took her to her quarters. They said, this is your room. This is where you usually go. You're doing really well. Normally you're afraid. You're not. And they gave her this big spiritual lesson and went on from there. She ended up quitting her job, becoming a healer. And she has all these testimonials. And she says, blue light comes out of her hands. She's got eyewitnesses to this. She says when she's doing her healings, she can see the Greys. This is so weird. In her mind's eye, and they're up there on their craft, fussing with their little knobs to help facilitate the healing. And it totally changed her life.
This case is so fascinating, and there are several like this to where it feels like they're embodying the healing power, but they're just the conduit, like a medium or something. They're basically channeling the healing from, usually when we think of channeling, we think of like Esther Hicks or Edgar Casey or Bashar or something like that, Derilenka. But with this, it's and there's some beings that are far off that aren't really recognized, identified. You couldn't like point them out in a lineup or anything. No real physical descriptions are given. But with this, it seems like physical entities that she has made contact are now just remote, basically giving her powers that are then, helping humanity in this way. So they're kind of using her. And this all goes back to this vessel idea. Do you mind talking to us about that just real quick?
Yeah, I think we're all autonomous entities. And we talk about, people talk about astral projection where, I'm leaving my body and I'm going to the other side. We're just wearing these meat suits. And I think it's a little bit of a misconception there because the fact is the other side is our true home. And we're actually projecting down here and wearing this fleshy body in order to learn certain lessons we cannot learn on the other side, which is where we reside eternally. And that's where we do most of our living, is on the other side. And I think ETs are the same way, and they work through people to a certain extent, but I don't think they possess people or anything like that, not even remotely.
Right.
I think, that would be the way that's my assessment, I should say, where I'm looking at all of this. I think that the people who are having contact, and particularly who are being healed, they're chosen for a certain reason because they're doing good work for humanity.
Yeah.
I started looking at who's being healed and why, because it's evenly divided between men and women. It's very young people, very old people. It's all over the world. It's not blood type. It's not race. Right? I won't even use that term because we're all one race.
There you go.
It's not ancestry.
Right.
Because Pat, that lady I was just talking about, she's Black, African American. So is Michael Carter. So someone once told me, how come Black people don't have encounters? I'm like, what are you talking about? What about Barney L? He's one of the first. People of all races, whether you're Asian or Pacific Islander or Latino or white or what have you. The pattern I did find was people who are doing good work for humanity in some capacity. It's social workers, it's doctors, it's teachers, it's musicians. Boy, they love musicians. It's, social, animal rights activists, environmentalists, people who are doing good work for humanity in some way are the ones who really being contacted. I think this shows why ETs are not someone to be afraid of. Helping those who are helping others. I kind of got off track with your question there. Sorry.
No apology
I thought that
needed.
was an important point.
No apology needed. And it was an absolutely important point. And I'm glad that you made it, man. One of the things that I was thinking of when you were talking about this is that the people who are given the ability to heal, whether it's channeled through entities that aren't here or just increase their natural abilities that they're capable of, and then go on to heal folks, it seems very interesting that none of these people are particularly religious, or they don't use their religion as a means to explain why they're able to heal people. Like you get these evangelicals or people who, let snakes bite them and stuff like that. There may be some crossover there, but I just think that it's really interesting that there's a real, broad scope of their healing in it. It's not tied to one particular religion. So they're not sitting there going, oh, well, through the power of Jesus, I'm doing this. They just heal people. And there's no question about, what religion it came from or anything like that. It's just not brought up and it's not important, which I also find interesting in the correlation to religious healings is that then you ask the question, well, what are they? Is it just really basically extraterrestrial healings? That then they're like, just say that Jesus did it. You know what I mean? We don't want any publicity for this. So I just find that bit of it pretty interesting, man.
Yeah, I ended up putting a whole chapter on alternative sources, like religious healings and angels and what have you. In fact, I was doing this research, I found like 3 cases of people struck by lightning who were healed as a result of a lightning strike. And religious healings do take place. And there's a bunch of cases of people who were healed as a result of an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience. Healing can come from many different avenues. And we do have the ability to heal. This is one of the things we can do as human beings. All entities have this ability. So I think that was something that really kind of piqued my interest. And I started thinking, well, how many of these people who are describing a glowing entity coming to the room and calling it an angel are really seeing an ET?
Yes.
Versa, for that matter. There's a little bit of a bleed through. Some of these cases could be angelic, as we would think of it. About every darn book on that subject and investigated ghostly hauntings and demonic hauntings. They are real, but it follows a completely different pattern. They're absolutely real, and so I think are angels too. I honestly do. But I don't think they're ETs. I think ETs and most of what people are describing in terms of these craft coming down are neither demons nor angels, but people like us, more like us than different, and are coming from other planets. It's a simple, logical explanation. It's almost inescapable. Because if people say, well, no, they're demons. I'm like, well, where does that leave us? Are we demonic? Are we someone's psychological creation from someone else's matrix? No, that makes 0 sense. We're not living in a matrix that's made up, and UFOs are not some intense different masks and aligning itself to our belief system. That's a very anthropocentric theory, which I think is wrong, flat out wrong. We are dealing with people like us.
It's a fascinating perspective, man. Absolutely fascinating. And that is one of the things, right? You think either it's a bunch of different stuff or it's one thing that can just apprehend our consciousness, make us think that it's whatever, it wants us to think based on our own beliefs. And so it seems to know you, cognitively. This is again why Pam Nance, who was in that panel with us, and guys, check out the link down in the show notes, Expansive Insider. Preston joined us for a contact panel over there with Pam Nance. We had Mark Gober. We had you. We had Ryan Musgrave Evans. And his thing, back to what you were saying about the poltergeist activity, to where they can become invisible. And his thing is that all poltergeist activity and everything is this one particular entity, the cryptoterrestrials, that he interacts with quite frequently. And so, again, it's kind of like they know him and they know how to hijack his subconscious. But back to Pam Nance, one of her stories about in her younger years was they met her as, I believe, little monkeys or little bears, something like that, a little figure, as to not scare her, because she was so young. it kind of like, again, knows you and knows your consciousness, which is, again, fascinating. I mean, because then at a high level, if we go unity consciousness and it's all you anyway, then you did choose this, back to the sovereignty idea, that you chose it on one level or another. And this is the particular type of entity that you check the box on the other side to interact with, or to have, you know, some sort of contact with in these meaningful ways at these particular times in your life. And it's like, I mean, clockwork. It's like, oh, yeah, all right, we got to go visit Preston now, you know, because we're on a schedule here and he's signed up for so many interactions and we got to facilitate that. It's just absolutely fascinating. Now, I'm grateful for what you said about the lightning, because this is the next one I had pulled up, but please go ahead. I cut you off.
I think probably there's a wide variety of all kinds of supernatural entities out there. If you look into the fairy lore of Ireland and ancient England and stuff, I think there's some validity to that. It's not all ET. I mean, there's Bigfoot out there too. I think those are exactly what they appear to be. But some of what we're seeing are probably not ET. I think most of what people are reporting, you know, in terms of ships coming down from the sky, are exactly what they appear to be. But yeah, there's a wide variety of stuff out there.
It's so wild. It's so wild. So I'm grateful that you brought up the lightning, because I actually had an example of healed from lightning strike, and then also several lightning strike cases in here that I was very curious to talk to you about. So this would be case 142 in your book, the heart injury due to lightning strike. So in August 7th of 89, real estate broker Katrina W. of Portland, Oregon, was injured by a nearby lightning strike while staying in Pensacola, Florida. So she's from Portland, staying in Florida, struck very close to her. She was struck by a bolt of lightning outside of her home, which is terrifying, by the way. I do know somebody that got struck by lightning. He said it was absolutely horrible. So afterwards, she stumbled inside, disoriented and afraid. She knew that she had been injured by the strike, but decided to wait until morning in the hopes that her condition would improve. Now, that night, Katrina was taken aboard a UFO. She woke up to find herself lying on a table suffering from excruciating chest pains. As Katrina watched from a disassociated state, a gray-type aliens cut a square into her chest and attached a black mechanism with several extensions to a hole in her chest. This is fascinating. So when the pain became particularly intense, the aliens telepathically told her, "We are repairing your heart. You will be okay now." Now, the next morning, Katrina woke up with a sore chest, but was otherwise healthy. As she says, quote, "The first thing I did when I got out of bed was to look for the scar and square cut in my chest, but found nothing. No blood on my sheets, no scar. My chest was sore throughout the day, but not as sore as it would have been expected to feel after such a radical operation." Now, she believes that the machine that they had over her heart was realigning the electromagnetic or electrochemical impulses in her heart because they've been altered by the lightning somehow. So you hear about this, about people getting shocked. Now, I've been shocked by 110 before. If you have like an exposed outlet in your house or something like that and you touch it. Now, they say that you can die 2 weeks later from that one shock because it throws your heart out of balance, out of sync. And so it's like this arrhythmia that occurs with any type of strong electrical shock. And I would think with a lightning bolt, that's pretty powerful as well. Now, not only did she get struck by lightning and possibly, was going to be injured with this for a really long time or possibly fatal, but UFOs picked her up that night. So what the hell's going on with that? So they somehow are watching Katrina here. Not only, they followed her to Florida where she got struck by lightning. They then interact with her. So I have two questions on this point for you. Do you think that they just knew that she got struck by lightning because they were monitoring her, or maybe they saw it and then came and scooped her up to help her? Or do you think perhaps that they caused the lightning strike as a means of interacting, kind of like breaking the ice with her or something like that?
I don't have any evidence that they would cause lightning strikes. Florida is the number one lightning state. If you're struck by lightning, probably in Florida. It's very dangerous there. And I think they do monitor people, contactees. She's a lifelong contactee. This is the purpose of implants, by the way, is to monitor a person's vitals. It's not basically to track you. They can track you anywhere. People have had their implants removed. ETs come right back down and re-implant you. And people have asked, what's the purpose of these implants? It's to monitor your vital signs, to measure levels of pollution, to boost your immune system. It's always health So I think what happened there is oh, she's hurt, and they swooped down and took care of her. Because if you're going to get healed, the chances are it's over 50% of the cases you have a long history of contact. You do, and it's in your family. So there are some one-offs. There are some people who don't have a history of contact, but most people do. She certainly fits that pattern. She actually drew that whole thing out. The little instrument that was placed on her chest, she drew it in her book. So it's very, very interesting. And she's not particularly happy about her encounters. They've been quite traumatic for her. But here she is reporting a healing. And some of the people I've talked to and who, their cases I've reviewed are not happy. They feel like they're a little bit being pushed around. And one lady was cured of cancer. She's still unhappy with it. One lady had her gallstones removed, and they did not remove her gallbladder, which you almost always have to do if you have gallstones. And she was upset because she did not give permission or know this was going to happen. That's what she felt. But the vast majority of people are really grateful and look at these people as friends or family and are super happy, like they got a healing. And I think that ETs are watching over people closely. And when they'll start to decline, are taken on board. I'll give you a good example of a lady who developed kidney failure. And she went to the doctor, she hadn't urinated in like 2 or 3 days. And the doctor's like, oh my God, you're having complete kidney failure. You need to go to the emergency room right now or you will die. And she rushed home to tell her family, to call her boss, called her friend. And she's like, pray for me. I have to go to the hospital. If I don't, I've got kidney failure. And before she could get to the hospital, she fell asleep and woke up that night by these short little dark-skinned, dumpy-looking figures, not grays. They were massaging her abdomen. She was going in and out of consciousness. And she woke up the next morning and went straight to the bathroom and then went to the doctor, and the doctor was completely baffled. He's like, I don't know, maybe I just know. I don't know what to tell you, but fine. And so she told everyone, I think it was angels who healed me, even though she kind of knew it wasn't. And she really got confirmation a month or 2 later when she found herself being pulled on board a craft in a round room on a table, your typical description. And there were these beings around her. And they showed her this instrument, which I've heard described many times. It's a sort of device which places over your chest or your body, your torso, and it displays your organs holographically in full living color. They said, there's your kidneys. Look, don't they look healthy? She's like, yeah, they do. They said, here's your liver. You see all these dark spots? And she said, yes. And they said, this is very bad. Your liver is unhealthy. You need to stop drinking Diet Coke. It is destroying your liver. So they will dispense dietary advice. I told one lady, you're getting too fat. Stop eating fatty foods. They told one guy, you need to stop smoking. And they showed him, this is our gift to you, and gave him this container filled with black goo. And he's like, what's this? And they said, we pulled this from your lungs. There are actually 2 cases exactly the same. The only difference is the shape of the container. Like, you need to stop smoking. And that same guy, he started smoking marijuana, and they pulled him back on board again. Said, we don't want you smoking marijuana. This is not the life we had planned for you. And when I heard that quote, I'm like, wait, what? They're planning our lives?
Yeah.
That was a little like, wow. But yeah, they will dispense, dietary advice. It even stretches into mental health. One guy was suicidal. A California guy was suicidal and went out into the desert to end his life. Had the gun up to his head when a gray appeared and took him on board and stopped the suicide. There's three or four cases like that. Wow. So these guys are watching out for us, and they know what's going on.
It's remarkable. And I love what you said also. I wanted to talk about a John Mack case here real quick that's in your book as well, Isabella. Now, as part of the process, so really Isabella was the impression that beings really needed to take her physical body to maintain her health as a breeder for tune-ups. As part of the process, they gave her a bitter liquid to drink and put in her what she calls a vaccine. The drink, she believes, is just like medicine or a super vitamin. Now, what's interesting about this is that she thinks that the aliens need to keep her healthy so that the hybrid baby she carries and nurses for them will also be healthy. Regarding this type of health maintenance, Mack writes, rather, this is for our benefit or to keep our organs healthy, so that the beings might use them for their purposes later, as some experiencers have suggested, is one of the questions that seems to depend on, in part, upon how we choose to interpret the phenomena, rather. So this is also very interesting because now we're talking about that they only keep us healthy because of selfish reasons. Maybe we're some sort of organ donor for them and they let us free range because it's the healthiest way to get the best organs here. But there happens to be smoking and alcohol and weed and all kinds of stuff here that we can get into that they really would prefer us not to do. Now, you know, to Isabella's case here, it seems like that she is, again, some sort of like surrogate or something for some hybrid children or something like that. And so they would want her super healthy. It's like if parents, to a couple hires a surrogate, well, they pay for the best medical, the best food, the best everything, so that the chances that the baby is super, super healthy is the max that they can get. And so again, this is very, very interesting, is the relationship that we seem to have with these ETs is fascinating to me. So what do you think this relationship is all about?
Yeah, David Jacobs talked about that. He takes a pretty dim viewpoint of the ET contact experience, and feels like the ETs are at some point going to take over Earth. Which I think is actually fear-based thinking.
I agree.
They've been around for millennia. I don't see any evidence that that's going to happen. But he had one client call it equipment maintenance.
Yeah.
And occasionally I will post on Facebook some of these cases and stuff, and people are like, well, we take good care of our farm animals. And that's the way they look at us. We're nothing but farm animals to them. And I will say, I'm trying to be completely objective about this. I'm just presenting the evidence, and you can make up your own mind about it. I'm keeping my opinions out of it. My opinion is, though, that it's not equipment maintenance. I think that they are keeping people healthy and that they do get some benefit out of it, certainly. But there are cases of people who are elderly who are being healed. There's a case from England. A lady, she's in her 70s. Elsie is her name. And they healed her of jaundice. Why would they do that to a 70-year-old woman? I mean, that's zero to me. And there's case after case. There's a lady I interviewed who was suffering from glaucoma, and her vision was deteriorating quickly, and she was visited by praying mantis type beings who healed her of glaucoma. She went to her ophthalmologist, and he's like, "Oh my God, your optic nerve has thickened up. It was getting really thin. It's like double its size now. What happened?" And she says, "Well, I've had contact."
I'm going to have you back on, man. We're going to wrap it just because my internet's being stupid right now. So we're going to wrap it up here for this one, but there's so many more things to talk to you about, especially, so you have Mona Stafford's case. I just recently wanted to touch on. This one creeped me out so damn much. Briefly here. She was placed on a device. This is when she was abducted, I think with two other friends, which twisted her feet painfully. And then she was also put on a stool that seemed to undergo quick accelerations. And then they placed her on a table and proceeded to pull both of her eyeballs out and set them on her cheek. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And then she goes to the doctor and they said something about how physician said something likely to an irritant. So basically that it was done by an absolute surgeon is what a doctor said. Well, if they did do this, it was an absolute surgeon. So again, case after case after case of fascinating information. You yourself, Preston Dennett, are absolutely fascinating. Your astral travel stories will absolutely have you back on to talk about. But guys, the Healing Power of UFOs, 300 true accounts of people healed by extraterrestrials and all the ways to find Preston D. Dennett will be located down in the show notes. So make sure that you guys check that out. Preston, I can't thank you enough, dude. We have so many more conversations to have here, and I'm looking forward to every damn one of them. So thank you so much, brother. This was incredible.
Hey, my pleasure. It's an honor and a delight. Anytime.
Just want to take a moment and thank Preston D-Train Dennett for coming by and hanging out with this. Man, I hope that sticks. It's a lot of fun. So check the show notes, guys, for his amazing book, The Healing Power of UFOs, 300 True Accounts of People Healed by Extraterrestrials, and all of his other books and every way to find him. Again, one of my favorite researchers ever. So thank you again, Preston, for coming on. We'll gotta have you back on, man. There's way too much cool shit to talk to you about. All right, so while you guys are down in the show notes, check out our resource links as well. You've got Food Forest Abundance, get that freedom from fear on. You've got Opus, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. If you, yes, you, would like to start your own podcast, we have partnered with Red Circle. That's who I host through. That is who I highly recommend, and there's a link down there that will get you started in the right direction if that's something that you choose to do, which I highly recommend everyone do if you think that you should. Down in the show notes as well is the Manifestor's Guide. If y'all really want to step your game up, Dewey Taylor has a special scholarship offer for you, the listener of this show. Go ahead and type Expanding Reality, all caps, no spaces, at checkout for an even sweeter deal than that. Now, while you guys are down in the show notes, you might as well check out expandingrealitypodcast.com. It's linked down there as well. That is our mothership. That's our central hub for everything. So make sure that you guys are signed up over there so you can get the latest deets on all the stuff going on. A lot of changes happening. A lot of cool stuff too. Check out the store while you're over there. We have the new shirts, the Ninja, the Thought Ninja, wacha, wacha, as well as the Lizard Turds. Go check those out, guys. They're a lot of fun, linked in the show notes directly. Also, over at expandingrealitypodcast.com, you can sign up to become an Expansive Insider, and that is how you get access to all the bonus stuff, and it's a wonderful way to support the show. Also, this is a value for value system, so if you find this thing valuable, there's a link down there that reads Support the Mission, and that is how you engage in that. All right, guys, go out into this incredibly beautiful place, whatever the hell this thing is, and y'all pick up a piece of litter. Be nice to everybody that you come across. Go ahead and take yourself up on something amazing, like buying somebody a coffee or a meal or something like that in line around you. Also, while you guys are out there just crushing it at life in general, you might as well go ahead and get out of the left-hand lane if you've got somebody behind you wanting to pass. And above all, and anything else, guys, go out into this incredibly amazing, mysterious, batshit crazy place, whatever the hell this thing is. And y'all just be good to one another. Thank you so much for listening, for watching, for engaging, and just being the coolest sons of bitches ever. We'll see you next time.
At Grainger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day, and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry, with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.